This is from my private stash. We're looking at Action Master Elite today. So for many of you who followed Transformers during the 80s and 90s, you'll know that around 1987, Transformers got a lot more gimmicky than its usual transformation gimmick. What I mean by that, like you have a lot of robots that turns into animals, cars, weapons, communication devices, even cities and bases. Around 1986, when the movie came out, of course we had Devastator back in 85, but they went all out with combining. So you have like combiners like Predaking, Superion, Minosaur, you have Defensor, and to some extent, you can count Skylynx as a combiner because you have the two components that make into one super robot. The question is, what do you do after all that? So around 1987, they started the idea of headmasters, target masters, where you have little guys that turns into the bigger robot's head or the bigger robot's weapons. Around 88, they have something called the pretenders. Pretenders, you have a robot inside a non-transforming figure that kind of fools you thinking that, oh, this is a non-transformer. Skip forward to 1989. So you still have the pretenders. But then this is when Transformers tried to compete with Micro Machines. So they came out with something called Micromasters. Now we fast forward to 1990, 1991. And this is what we're going to talk about today. Action Masters is controversial. Why is that? Because for a transforming toy line, Action Masters do not transform. In fact, they probably make that their main feature because now Transformers don't transform because they have action figure features that you can pose them, kind of very much like G.I. Joes, but they do have weapons, weapon packs, partners, and vehicles that turn into other things. Around 1990, that's when Transformers become more like Mask and G.I. Joe than Transformers. Now skip ahead to 1991. So how do you one-up that? Simple. You make non-transforming Transformers transform. And this is where we start with Action Master Elite. Now the four Transformers you see in front of you, this is from my own private stash. We have Double Punch, Omega Supreme. Now keep in mind it's not Omega Supreme, it's Omega Supreme. Turbo Master, and Windmill. Each of these have, very much like a regular Action Master. They're all posable. So I'll give you an example. Double Punch here. He's a figure, very much like the other Action Masters. His arms move. His head can rotate, like so. You can spread his legs out like this, move them. There's a joint for him to move on. There's like a knee joint. And of course, there's like accessories that you can attach to him like an action figure. In his case, he has these two gigantic pair of legs on his back, like so. Now this is detachable, all right? You'll see that with the other Action Masters I got here. So as you can see, very much like the other Action Masters, his features are pretty standard. You'll also notice that the sculpt on Action Masters are pretty good. Like you'll see the chest detail, you'll see the arm detail, the head and the face detail. Very, very on point. And if you're looking at this figure and go, wait, where have I seen this guy before? Well, you're not too far off because if you look at the features, the sculpt is based off of G1 Scorponok, who came out back in 1987. Except in this case, he shrunk down, okay? Now, Action Masters are always based on existing figures for the most part. So in this case, it's Scorponok, or more specifically, if you prefer, Black Zarek, because of his face. But in this case, very much like the other Action Masters, he's shrunk down so that you can pose him. You can kind of put him in like an action pose, a battle pose and whatnot. He's a lot more, these are a lot more posable than your regular G1 bricks. As a lot of fans would affectionately refer to them. But what makes these what makes these toys different? And I'm gonna get to that in a bit here. But you'll notice that every one of these sculpts, with the exception of Windmill here, they all look a little familiar. Okay, so I'll give you an example. I'll put Double Punch behind and we'll look at Omega Supreme. Omega Supreme here, right off the bat, even the name kind of hints it. If you look at his head, right away you're going, wait, isn't that Omega Supreme? Well, you know what? You're not too far off because the sculpt is based off of Omega Supreme. And if you look at the, like the chest, you look at the leg area, you look at the arms, and especially the shoulder. The features on this sculpt is very reminiscent of Omega Supreme. Let's look at the back. The back, you have this backpack that kind of like is a call out to the original G1 Omega Supreme's backpack. So it's not a coincidence that he looks like the G1 Omega Supreme. Same thing with Turbo Master. Turbo Master here, if I take out the blades that he's holding on to, and maybe just one of the propeller blades. The sculpt here should remind you of G1 Bruticus. So if you look at the pink part here, that's the chest for G1 Bruticus. You look at the two cannon pieces in the back, one of them is yellow because it's actually a button for the action feature. It reminds you of Onslaught's cannon piece when he's in Bruticus's mode. And then when you look at the head itself, the sculpt is very reminiscent of Bruticus. And when you look at this one propeller on the left arm, it's also reminiscent of Vortex when he's in G1 Bruticus's arm mode. And then the rest, they took some liberties. Like, you know, this, the right leg and the left leg doesn't look anything like Swindle or Brawl. And of course, the blast off arm on the right is just a generic arm. Last but not least, Windmill. Now, Windmill is kind of different when it comes to these four. He's different for several reasons. Number one, he's totally asymmetrical. As you can see, there's no limb here that matches the other. Even the chest is a little different. Like when you look at the chest, his left and the right doesn't even match. This goes the same when you look at this figure from the top. Even the left and right side is not consistent. Okay, his right arm has a cannon. It has like a dial piece down here. His left leg, you have these two canisters, and then on his left side, you have somewhat of a normal leg, and then on the left arm is somewhat of a normal arm. Unlike the other three, Windmill is a completely unique and original character. He's not based off of anything that's existing, no existing toy. He has no character, I guess, in the cartoon and the comics prior to this toy. So now we're going to talk about each of these individually. We're going to talk about how they transform and what their modes are like. So let's start with Double Punch. Okay, this is the toy that looks somewhat like Scorponok because of the sculpt is based off of that toy. I'm going to set this guy aside. I'm going to focus on him. Now, you're probably wondering, what are the alt modes like? Because if they're not meant to transform, how much can you get out of them? This is where I give Hasbro and Takara some credit, all right? Like, when you look at these figures, they're very limited in their pose, and because of that, you can't really do much with them. In this case, Double Punch transforms from a robot to a scorpion. So how does that work? First, you swing up the arm, and then you swing up the other arm. And the reason why I'm doing this individually is because these arms are connected to a gearing mechanism on the inside. Now, most of my Action Masters, due to their age, the mechanisms are very delicate. So I think there's just one Action Master here that actually works fairly normally, fairly smoothly. But the rest of them, I'm just gonna describe to you what their features are. So move up the arm, and then once you do that, you turn the head over like this, so that the face faces backwards. Once you have that, you swing up the feet like that, and when you do so, it exposes the stinger. And then once you swing up the stingers, you swing up the legs like so, okay, like this, and then you pivot them like so. So right now you're kind of halfway there. Remember these legs, like these pieces that he had on his back? Now you slide them on the side. There's a slot on the side where you can slide these pieces on. It doesn't matter which one goes which side. They're ambidextrous. And you swing them on the side like so, and then there you have it. You have your scorpion with 2 tails. So that action lever on the bottom is supposed to move the arms up and down when you push it. But it's kind of hard to do so because of where it is, like where it's positioned. It's hard to push it. So plus the fact that it's old and the mechanism doesn't work very smoothly, you kind of have to imagine this going up and down like so. So like, you know, as you can see just now, when I moved it, it activates the gear mechanism. So that's the play feature. And is there any more to the transformation? Unfortunately not. This is pretty much it. So that's Double Punch. And yes, he is reminiscent of Scorponok because it was the inspiration for this sculpt. So you can actually see the chest, very much like G1 Scorponok. The chest becomes the top part of the scorpion. And the arm, of course, becomes the arms, and the legs kind of become the tail, even though the G1 Scorponok toys, the legs compact into the back of the scorpion, and then the tail is a separate piece. So there you have it, Double Punch in his alt mode. And I hate to say it, but it doesn't get better from here. It actually gets worse. So the next figure I'm going to explore, going to show you, is Omega Supreme. Again, not Supreme, Supreme. So this guy, as you can expect, because he's based off of Omega Supreme, he's going to turn into something similar to a tank. So in this case, what you do with Omega Supreme is you flip him up, you flip out the legs like so, and when you do that, you'll notice that the tank treads, it points towards the bottom. Okay, like so. Now, you see this pink piece, the gun that he was holding on to? You kind of slide it in carefully because you can see there's like these 2 slots here. So you kind of put it in there, careful not to break it or cause it any stress. And this is kind of tricky again because of the age. So you gotta be careful with it. So once you have it, the gun becomes the front part of the tank. Now it gets better. Lift up the arms like so. Swing out the guns, because he has these 2 cannon barrels underneath them like that. So you swing them up like that. Okay, make sure they're pointing forward. Once they're pointing forward, you kind of put like this and then swing it backwards like that. So you can see, like, now you can see the cannon on top of his head. Once you do that, you move the cannon up a little bit, and then you bend it like that. So you have all 3 guns pointing forward. Now, remember what I said about the action features not working for most of my Action Masters? Omega Supreme is the only exception. His is the only feature that still works fairly well. So I'm going to show you what happens when you push the button. He literally spins like this, and this is your action feature. This is his attack feature. Okay, so as a kid, you can imagine him like firing all the lasers towards the Decepticons. And he kind of, you can pretend that he rose into battle like this. And there you have it, Omega Supreme with the action feature. Next, I'm going to go to Turbo Master, aka the Bruticus lookalike. So very much like the other Action Masters, he also have an action feature when he transforms into his alt mode. So I'm going to do that right now. So what you do is you first take Turbo Master like by his robot mode like this, lift up his arms like that. Now normally his action feature works when you push this yellow button, which is also part of his back cannon. But again, because due to age, it's not working properly. So I'm just going to leave it at that. Next, you want to swing up these fins, these stabilization fins by his legs like that. Okay. Bend out these legs like so. And then you bend his knees like this. Bring it up like that. And very much like Double Punch, you turn his head like this so that his chest and the head forms a cockpit. You won't see it now, but you'll see it later. And then you turn it like this, and then you'll notice there's like 4 ports, or well, 4 ports on his fist. So what you do is you attach these propellers onto the front of his fist like this. So this becomes the helicopter blades, or the aircraft blades, right? So normally if this works, if you push this button, these propellers spins. Except in this case, because again, due to the age, they don't spin. Next, you take these swords, you fit it on the side of, like the side ports of his arms, put it like this. Same thing with the other side, like so. And there you have it. He becomes an attack craft. You're probably wondering, it's like, so are they all this lame? Like all they do is just kind of like contort their bodies, you bend up their legs, you lift up the arms, and you put pieces on them. For the most part, yes. Double Punch, definitely. Omega Supreme, yes. Turbo Master, definitely. So now we're going to move on to the next one, which is Windmill. So remember what I said about Windmill being unique? Not just because he's like a completely different character, completely new character, not based off of an existing character, but the fact that he's completely asymmetrical. So why is he asymmetrical? I'll show you. But before I start, I gotta let you know that number one, again, very much like these, like Double Punch and Turbo Master, the gear mechanism for this guy, it's not working out well. So I'm not gonna show you what it does. The other thing is, I do have another blade, but the other blade I have is extremely fragile. So I did not bring it with me today for the video because it was very close to breaking, so I'm just gonna leave it. But the blade is pretty much a mirror image of this piece. So with Windmill, the first thing you do, very much like the other Action Master, is you need to contort him. So what you do is, in this case, I'm not gonna like, put him up, like put his neck or his head all the way around. I'm just gonna turn him around at 90 degrees like that. Okay, next, I'm gonna lift just his right arm all the way up. Okay. Next, I'm gonna take his right leg, gonna bend him like so, bring it out, and then bend his knees up like that. And then you see where there's this port and a peg? You connect them together like so. Okay. So right now he's pretty messed up. Looks like he's doing some really weird Cybertronian yoga. Next, I'm gonna take apart these 2 canisters. The canister becomes skids for his ult mode. So once that's done, you stand him up like this, okay? And then straighten out his leg. Snap his feet down like so. So it kind of points towards the back. Now he's like, it looks like he's doing ballet. Flip up the tail, straighten out this arm, and you'll notice that there's also a little port and a pig piece on his arm. So once you have that, right, he actually locks in place. Once everything's locked in place, you put the propeller or the rotor piece on the top. So just imagine the other piece being here. So you're basically looking at his attack mode, which is like a helicopter. Now I know that this is it kind of looks weird, maybe a little lame, but out of the 4, he actually has something that resembles an actual mode, like an actual alt mode. Is it a good helicopter? No. Is it a lame helicopter? Very much so. But unlike the other 3, you'll notice that at least they put a little bit more effort and a little bit more design into his alt mode so that he doesn't look like a robot sitting or standing or lying on his back. But having said that, his robot mode it takes a lot of like a lot of the aesthetics out, so he doesn't really look very good as a robot either. So the theme behind Action Master is, yes, you have the posability, yes, you can use him as an action figure, but as a Transformer, as you can see, it's not a very good Transformer. So I'm going to turn everybody back into the robot mode, and you'll see how involved it is turning them back. So Windmill, again, very much like what I did. I'm just going to take out his rotor. Flip his leg and feet back, like so. Take out, put his arms out so that it's no longer pegged in. Put the two skids together so it forms those two canisters in the front of his leg. And then flip it down, like so. Twist his right leg like so, and then turn his head forward so it faces you. Swing his leg, swing his right arm down to his leg, and there you have it. That's Windmill's alt mode. And then you just put the rotor back on his shoulder like that. Okay, so that's Windmill. Okay, Turbo Master, same thing. Like, pretty much you just reverse what I did before. Just take out all the parts. Okay, straighten his legs out, straighten his feet out. Rotate the side stabilizer like this. Okay, straighten out the leg, like so. Bring his arms down. Flip his head over, 180. Stand him up. Put his propellers back in his shoulder slots or the shoulder ports. Take his wings, put them into his fists so they become swords. And there you have it, Turbo Master. Next is Omega Supreme. Again, want to be careful with these guys. Straighten out his arms a bit. Okay, swing the arm cannons in so we expose the fists. Once you do that, straighten out his back, make him stand up a bit, bring his arms down, and then you take out his gun on the front that forms the front part of his tank. Flip up the two fenders, or two treads, like so. And then you put the gun part or the front of the tank, like that. And there you have it. Omega Supreme in his robot mode. Last but not least, Double Punch. He's probably the simplest of them all. Flip down his stingers, like that, so it forms his feet. Straighten out his legs, like that. Take out the two leg pieces, the two blue pieces like that, put them aside for now. Stand him up, swing his arms down, one at a time. Because if you don't, you'll gum up his gears even more so. Swing his head 180, like that. Once that's done, you put these pieces back on his back, like that. And there you have it. You have Double Punch. So, I'm going to talk very briefly about these guys again. As I said before in my previous videos, when North American Transformers ended around 1990-91, even before then, there was a divergence in the G1 Transformers universe. So most people by now knows that around 1987, the Japanese continuity, instead of doing Rebirth as we had in North America, they had a sub-series called Headmasters, and that's a completely different universe for them. And then the year after, instead of Power Masters, they have something called Master Force. And the Master Force is a completely different universe compared to what we have here in North America. Of course, in North America, by 1988, we no longer have a cartoon. And in 1989, they had Victory. Victory is yet another subset of Transformers that focuses on the Brain Masters and, of course, the Chest Masters or the Breast Masters, where you actually have the breast armor of the Transformers turning into weapons and animal partners. We definitely did not have that in North America. And then, of course, around 1990, that's when we had the Micromasters introduced in North America. Now, in 1991, this is where we have a substantial, noticeable difference in our toy lines. 1991, that's when we saw, in the Japanese continuity, the Battlestar manga series where Optimus Prime, the actual Optimus Prime, came back. This is not talking about we're not talking about Power Master Optimus Prime. We're actually talking about the original Optimus Prime. That's 1991. Around 1991, that's when what we have is we have more Micromasters, and we also have Action Masters, like just your regular Action Masters. However, in Europe, they had like a mix of both Japanese entries and their own entries. So they have Overlord, but he's not the same Overlord as they have in Japan. They have the Motivators, which is a Motiverse, I think that's what they're called. They're basically the Brain Masters, where they form Road Caesars, except they do not have the parts to form the giant robot. Same thing with Rescue Force. Rescue Force is basically the Breast Masters, where the 6 components turn into Leo Kaiser, except in their case, they only have 4. On top of all that, they have these guys, Action Master Elite. So unless you're a real diehard fan of Transformers, you might want to hunt them down just to see what they're like, or you might even skip them altogether. Because after seeing how they are, you probably wonder, it's like, why do they even bother? Is this what brought down Transformers? A lot of fans seem to think so. Because at this point, when you have a Transformer line that doesn't transform, but they're trying to make it so that it transforms, that's when they jump the shark. So there you have it. You have Action Master Elite. I would say this is one of the more controversial things that Transformers had done just before the line ended. But you decide for yourself. Is this something that you would pick up? Is this something that you're interested in? If you are, stay tuned. Stay with our channel. We'll talk about more about the controversial aspects of toys such as Transformers in our future videos. Hit the like and subscribe button. Thank you.